Okay, colleagues, we're now on to the topical issue that we agreed at the start of the meeting. It will be done by group process like we normally do. So each group will get 2 minutes to speak, and every speaker thereafter gets 1 minute to speak as per standing orders. The topic's the DCC traffic plan, the consultation process. Councillor Deirdre Heaney.
I understand that there is concern out there in the public because the figures around the public consultation process is low. The figure of people who engaged in the public consultation process is low. I understand that. I do also understand that there is an issue with road space in the city. But in terms of the people who I'm dealing with, Lord Mayor, I'm representing the Clontarf ward. That's a ward where we have the Clontarf to city centre cycleway, which is an absolute living nightmare for people in Clontarf, Raheny, Killester, Donnycarney, passing through that route. And there's a delay on the completion of it, so people are seeing that. I also have a situation with bus connects in Donnycarney and Killester, where on the Malahide Road in Donnycarney we're losing 2 bus stops and we're getting it replaced by 1. So that means that there's going to be a longer distance for certain individuals to walk to get a bus when we're trying to encourage people to leave the car behind and get the bus. So that's just from my local ward, Lord Mayor. So we need, I suppose, to have more joined up thinking in relation to trying to explain to people why we're doing what we're doing. I know Dublin City Council, Lord Mayor, doesn't control the provision of buses, and I know we don't control bus connects, but our officials need to engage with the officials in the NTA. I've written to the NTA about the bus stop issue that I mentioned earlier, and we also need to be cognizant of when we're introducing something like what we introduced, and when we say, you know, the public consultation process, the amount of contributors were overwhelmingly in favour of it. We need to be cognizant of the other issues that are happening in the city and bring people with us, Lord Mayor. And in this instance, I don't think that's what happened.
Yeah, Gormagot Ardware, a big Misha kind on group of NAS block. I'll be speaking more to my own views on this as distinct from the independent group, Lord Mayor. But I think Councillor Heaney actually heard the first thing she said is, why was it so low? The consultation process, in my view, was quite flawed. And it was flawed for various reasons. One, it was non-inclusive and it was discriminatory. It was online survey, email. It was published on the DCC Citizen Space platform, whatever that is. That was the only way you got to know how to make a submission. There was absolutely no public consultation. Unlike with the Climate Action Plan, which had consultation in 17 different areas and different facilities, Dublin City Council decided, for some strange reason, we are not going to public consultation on this. We have libraries, we have community centres which should and could be used for this. The second thing I just want to point out is the survey. And anyone who's read the 6 survey questions will realise that a first-year market research student would immediately see that there's an absolute bias being introduced in these questions. All of them were prompted, all of them were closed, because you can have open or probing, all of them closed, every one of them a loaded question, and every one of them a leading question. So there was absolute bias. It had to be bias in this. This was clandestine, it was covert, it was suspicious, but most of all, the whole process was flawed. And it was deliberately designed, in my view, to make sure that the people most affected by this, the 6 out of 10 drivers who, for whatever reason and good reason, have to go through the city, were being deliberately excluded on this. I think we just really need to go back to the drawing board in this hardware.
Gormagot, a speaker from the Green Party, please.
Thanks very much. Yeah, look, obviously, it's really difficult to get a consultation process that is perfect. I know, interestingly, that the same week that we had this, Paris had a plebiscite in their city around parking charges for SUVs. The turnout rate for that was 5.7%. There is no perfect way to get a full broad cross section of public opinion on these things. It is up to us as councillors to make it more accessible, to make it more engaging for the public. I know in the Greens we held public meetings, we met with constituents, we published things online, we spoke to the media, we met with constituents on the doors, we spoke to them as much as possible. The only public reps who made submissions into this process were Green Party reps. So it's a little bit frustrating, and this isn't the first time that we've had this, when people raise issues with the consultation process long after the consultation process itself was actually open and there for us as public reps to show leadership on, to try to make it as accessible as possible for people, to try to bring as many people with us, to do that exact piece of trying to address concerns, explain it to people and bring in as many people as possible. I think it has been great to see there has been so much positive engagement. There is among Dublin Bus saying that it's going to cut journey times for the majority of people who use the city by public transport. That's fantastic news. The businesses have shown that they're very broadly supportive of this. They have some specific concerns that will be addressed, and I think it's really important that we do that. But I think there's been some really poor communication on this in the media. I've heard the word nightmare been thrown around a few times for traffic. And again, you know, and a friend of mine is going through this at the moment. A nightmare is being knocked down by HGV on the quays. That's what happened to a friend of mine last year. She is still learning to walk again because of that. She is lucky she has her life. Taking HGVs off the quays will hopefully, among other vehicles, is the kind of thing that will prevent that nightmare
a speaker
for many
from
other
the
people.
Fine Gael group, please.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Obviously, in the first instance, I think anyone in this chamber has enormous sympathy for anyone who's been struck down by a HGV, and we all wish your friend a recovery and a safe recovery. I hope, though, we can bring this debate to a level where we actually consider the proposals that are before us, or at least that were before the Traffic and Transport SPC. And there's much to be satisfied with, but equally that shouldn't mean that everyone else has to be silenced or lectured to about their level of engagement versus, you know, one party's engagement versus another party's engagement. It's perfectly reasonable to criticise how a significant project like this, how the public consultation process took place in respect of this, and equally, by the same token, be satisfied that what is in fact is being proposed is something that's good for Dublin City. And that's where I would stand. I'd be of the view that the changes to the South Quays in particular, if you're taking a bus or if you're riding a bike or even if you're just walking, is actually going to be transformative for anybody who takes those journeys on a bike or on a bus and is permanently in gridlock. I think it's going to be a massive change. Obviously, how this plan feeds into the pedestrianisation of College Green, I think is going to be a massive and transformative change to our city. But where I would critique is not how the media have interpreted people's views, because the general public are going to have strong views and they're entitled to have those views. Where, you know, change is challenging and people are going to have them. And if we don't engage with people and speak with people, and rather than talk down to them, all you're going to have are these artificial, cartoonish clashes with, you know, it's being presented, you know, motorists versus cyclists. I think there's neighbourhoods close by that are concerned and they should be engaged with, and we need to do all we can to bring everyone together and end these cartoonish
Speaker
rows.
from the Labour Party, please.
Thanks very much, Lord Mayor. Happy to speak on this on behalf of the Labour group. And I suppose, look, first of all, just to state, we very much welcome the principle of the proposals and want to see them come to fruition. It was us as city councillors through our city development plan process that set the ambitious target. Sorry, thanks, Lord Mayor. It was us as city councillors through our city development plan process who set the ambition of 40% reduction in traffic. And if we want to set that ambition, that was adopted by this council, that was voted on by this council. And if we want to set those ambitious targets, we have to implement strong, decisive action that attempts to get traffic congestion off our streets that is only cutting through our city centre rather than going to it as a destination. We're talking about a specific core area of our city centre here that has been in gridlock. The quays haven't worked for decades. So I think the principle of trying to make our city a more attractive place to spend time in is something I think we can all get on board with. It is not going to detract from the people who want to go to the city, spend time in the city. Cars are welcome in the city. We're not trying to turn them off. If you want to spend time in the city, you're welcome. There are many car parks you can dump the car and spend time in the city. I think what we do need, and I agree with Councillor Gagan on this, is when we're talking about the communities that are potentially going to see increase in traffic in their communities, we need to talk to them and we need to engage with them. And I think also a wider public communication campaign is needed. If we're telling people you can't now go a certain way, we need to tell them where you can go. And I think that's something that's going to be really crucial for people that want to get through the city. If we're trying to send them around it, where are we sending them? So I think all of that detail will have to be worked out. The same with businesses and workers who are coming into the city to carry out their jobs and need to travel around. How are we communicating to them? All of those details need to be worked out, but I think the principle of making our city more livable, we can all get behind. Thanks, Lord Mayor.
A speaker from the Sinn Féin group, please.
I welcome this debate. I think it's a healthy debate, and I think we do need to be focused on reducing traffic, congestion, pollution, and the dangers of traffic in our city and our quays. And I think people feel strongly because they're passionate about the city. I'm passionate about the city. I'm not a car owner. I don't drive. I cycle. My children use the public transport every day into the city centre. And I want everybody to be made feel welcome and safe in our city. And that needs to be a multifaceted approach. We need a strong, visible police service, but we also need a safe city where people can traverse the city with accessible, reliable, safe public transport. And that's key to ensuring that we are able to reduce the traffic congestion. As well as that, I think the debate needs to be, while a healthy debate is welcome, it needs to be done in a proper, orderly, non-inflammatory way. And I think some of the language I've witnessed in this debate has not been helpful. I think we need to put away, park that language and engage with each other as people, as citizens and activists in the city. And that's what we've been charged to do as elected reps. And I think I welcome the debate and the business impact on this debate has been very positive. I want to single out Richard Guiney in particular, who's been very constructive in engaging with this process. I'm on several committees with him. He's always impressed me in his imaginative approach to this. And one of my final points would be this: we need to ensure that when we are bringing about changes to traffic in the city, that we're clear about where that traffic is going to go. There's no point in moving the congestion from the quays or from O'Connell Street or surrounding streets to other communities and then imposing traffic congestion on them. That's not the solution. We need a very holistic approach to ensuring that communities in and around the city centre can live healthily, their children can play healthily and safely in the city, and people can access the city for what it's meant to be, which is a place for recreation, to work, to study and to enjoy their lives. So I would welcome this debate. I hope we do bring it to a successful conclusion, and that in years ahead we can look back and say that was successful, we achieved it, and we live in a better, healthier, safer, more welcoming city than when we took charge.
Speaker from the Social Democrats, please.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. We welcome this plan. It's been a long time coming and it will be good for the city. Anything that helps public transport move more smoothly through the core city centre is to be welcomed. And removing cars from a couple, unlike what has been reported in the media, a couple of pinch points in the city centre will achieve this. It's particularly important for suburbs like my own on the north side in Santry, Whitehall, Ballymunfinglas, probably most of the north side when you think of it, which don't have access to other forms of public transport. It's really important that our public transport service in the form of buses can move smoothly and effectively through the city centre. And this is what this plan aims to achieve. I think it's unfortunate that the media discussion around this has been couched in such hysterical terms as people will not be able to access maternity hospitals, or people won't be able to drive through the city centre, or people won't be able to access shops for shopping. I think we need to deal with these issues and we need to have better comms around this. I really think that it will have a positive effect on traffic and on the air quality for people who live in the city centre. But there have been some issues with the consultation process, and therefore we call on management to engage with Pearse Street Residents Association, who believe that there were procedural issues in the consultation process relating to the publication of certain documents, with a view to addressing their concerns. And I think that DCC traffic management should deal with the areas, with residents in the areas where the proposed changes are met. And finally, on maybe a slightly tongue-in-cheek point, I see Diageo are big, have a lot of issues with not letting their 5-axle vehicles go up the quay. So maybe we should bring back the barges on the Liffey.
A speaker from People for Profit, please.
Thanks, Lord Mayor, and it's very interesting hearing the different opinions around the chamber on what is planned for Dublin City. Like other members, I welcome an improvement to how the city is ran from a traffic aspect. I think the media haven't been very helpful in how they've covered it over the last few days, because it's kind of given a bit of a fear to people that overnight we're going to stop any traffic or any cars that could come through and alter the way people move within our city. And I think I've always said that consultation always gets rid of that vacuum where misinformation lingers. And I'm not to discredit any of the hard work that Dublin City Council has done in the consultation process. I know it is a very hard space to be in. There's so much going on in one time. But I think we need to just make sure we're bringing everybody along with us. I'd also like to see if the opinion of the taxi drivers or how their representatives were engaged with, to see how it's going to be affected from them. I mean, we've had an awful lot of coverage over the last couple of months, maybe 2 years now, about how difficult it is to get out of the city. And I just don't think we want to hinder on that when we're trying to be getting people in to socialise within it, to keep the businesses open. So I'm fully supportive of making our town more accessible, about how we get around it. But I'm also more kind of worried about that we're bringing everybody along with us. If the fact that we had a reliable free access public transport system, then I think there wouldn't be such a big uproar as to how we're going to be able to access the city. But we don't have that, and I don't think we're in air enough to even having that reliable public transport system. So again, welcome debate tonight, and hoping that we can kind of move this to a more cohesive way and making sure that we do use the city as best as we can. Thanks.
Good, Hazel. Colleagues, we now move to individual speakers looking to meet and understanding orders. People have 1 minute. We've already started the list, so Councillor Tom Brabazon.
Yeah, look, we all want motherhood and apple pie in terms of, safe cycling, pedestrians, freely moving public transport. But I suppose where we come from with this is that, we need to be sure that there's proper consultation with the public, and that's not this, oh well, let's stick something up on the internet and maybe hopefully people might find it or see it. This is a fairly major decision in terms of an arterial route along the city quays, and it's important that as many people are consulted as possible. We should engage in a more active rather than passive consultation in respect of it. And I think it's one thing that's been said tonight about Diageo and so forth. I mean, one of the things that struck me was that if Diageo are going to have to increase their mileage, around the place, there's going to be a huge increase in carbon emissions.
Yeah, thanks, Lord Mayor, and I want to thank the officials for the work they have done. And it has been said, I think that the consultation process was underhanded. It was covert, and there's a huge percentage of people who did not and cannot use the online process. If we want consultation, we must go through our libraries, we must go through emails and area offices. I don't know what doors some people are knocking at. I know the doors I'm knocking at, I'm being told that it's going to be a great inconvenience, that we're smothered in the city. You'll drive cars down into built-up areas like Sheriff Street, East Wall, to go across the East Link and to get to the south side. Whether we like it or not, there will be an inconvenience. And is there proper public transport? You can't cope as it is. You can't get staff as it is. So therefore, that's going to be a serious issue. But at the end of the day, I think that parts of our city will be an inconvenience to people, and we need to go back to the drawing boards. Thanks, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Damien O'Farrell.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. No, listen, I'm more interested in fairness, and I'm interested in transparency and to have respect for the citizens of Dublin. A few years ago, this very council, we talked about a 30 kph default speed limit and loving 30 and all that, and we had a survey. That survey was thrown in the bin. I don't know if the councillors realise that. It was thrown in the bin because the same people who set the questions were the same people that were looking after the Loving 30 campaign. So this campaign, are you in favour of high quality pedestrian facilities in the city centre? Are you in favour of high quality cycle facilities? Do you support the principle of giving communities more transport choices? Of course I'm in favour of all those things. Of course I am. It was, as Councillor Ring said, it was very much loaded. And I want to ask the manager, the CEO, is he happy with this? Because our last CEO wasn't happy with that 30 kph, and it was thrown in the bin. And I want to see, does Richard, would he stand over this survey? Thank you.
Margaret. Councillor Donna Cooney.
Yeah. Well, I welcome this plan. I think there's been some misinformation there, and us as councillors were there too. We were all very well informed in that. At least we should have been, and we got enough emails about it. We attended the SPC meetings, and I know that there was even written responses to this as well. So it wasn't all online. And even in the journal there, people said they were either in support completely, fully, or to a reduction in traffic. So I think people know it's not working the way it is now. As I said, we all voted on the development plan, which this is in line with the development plan. We want a livable city. We want more people living in our city, more people visiting our city. We have to show how this is going to work, but there's a lot of misinformation. People will still be able to drive into the city. We welcome people driving into the city, but we want to also provide a city that people want to stay in when they're there. Maybe
Councillor Mannix Flynn. Councillor Mannix Flynn.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. It goes without saying that Dublin City Council are getting it in the neck on this particular issue when it should be the NTA. I believe that this issue is going to end up in a court in a judicial review. I do believe that the consultation process was deeply flawed, like the one was on Strand Road. This whole process was led by a number of Dublin City Council officials. One of those officials misled the court in relation to Strand Road. So the general public in the city have no confidence in this particular initiative. And as I say, Mr. Shakespeare set out his plan and his vision for the city at the outset of this particular meeting. And he never mentioned anything about this particular plan, which would completely undermine the city. We all want a city that's livable in, safe, and that we can walk around and we can drive around and we can be transported around. Unfortunately, we don't have that at the moment. We have basically a disaster of a place, which only not too long ago was subject to riots. And in those riots, the public transport was taken off the streets. So if you have a similar situation, how are people to get home?
Councillor Carolyn Moore.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. And just on the theme of consultation, I want to make the point that arguably the most important public consultation on transport in our city is the one that never happened, because I can guarantee you that if 30 or 40 years ago we'd asked the people of Dublin if they wanted to give the vast majority of our shared public space over to the storage and movement of private cars, they would have laughed at the idea. It would have been unthinkable when I was a child that we'd remove the ability for children to play on their own streets or walk to school by themselves. It would have been inconceivable that we'd force people with disabilities and parents with babies out into traffic so cars could occupy our footpaths, and it would have been an affront to the communities living in our city, many of whom didn't own cars then and still don't now, that we would sacrifice their quality of life to cater to one mode of transport that didn't serve them. But we never asked the citizens of Dublin if they were willing to make that trade-off. We just took the space via decades of transport policy that prioritised the car and only the car. This transport plan is an opportunity to redress that imbalance. I believe most people recognise that, and that's why there was a huge response to the consultation, and over 80% of the people who responded were in favour.
Councillor Larry O'Toole.
Thank you. Following on for Councillor Heaney, I first of all want to commend the Save Our Bus Stops, Malahide Road Bus Stops campaign, of which I will be fully supportive of. Secondly, I want to talk about, in the current debate, about the role of the media. Two occasions, Lord Mayor. Last week on one public broadcast, only the text that I could, and contributors that were against the plan were taken on board. Unfortunately, our executive didn't respond to the request to come on. I think we need to be doing that. We need to be using all those broadcasts and all to explain this. Also, on another occasion, one of our elected members of the Transport Committee was harangued on national radio for her stance on this. Just nothing short of being harangued.
Thank you. Janice Boylan.
We need traffic improvements in the city, but at any new plans comes questions, concerns, and we need to acknowledge that. There is concerns due to misinformation within the media that went out to the public about the public consultation process, and some people thought it wasn't too good, and it's okay to say that as well. All the work that was done still doesn't seem to have completely helped with relaying the general public's concerns if they were opposed to it or had some questions and concerns. You know, we're not saying that the work wasn't done, and fair play to the Green Party for the work that they did in this. What we're trying to say is that the way in which the consultation was done could have been better, and I think we can all agree on that. For example, just relaying people's fears. If people can't go one way, well then what way can they go? So, I mean, we do need the traffic improvements, we absolutely do, and we welcome anything that improves the city for pedestrians and cyclists alike, but we do have to look at the consultation process.
Councillor Deirdre Conroy.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, I hear what so many councillors are having information about this, but in fact, this system in the middle of the this absolute capital city in Europe has no metro underground, and the metro underground, it was said this morning, is supposed to be going up in about 11 years. Therefore, in certain parts of the city, and some people are, you know, still in Dublin City, but, you know, it could be Donnybrook, it could be Terranure, it could be other areas that would go over to the airport and go under the port tunnel, go onto the Liffey Bridge, and that would cost them at least €6 or €10 going up, and the same coming back, that's €20. So they're not going through the city. And now this idea that no cars are allowed to go through the city is quite serious about what I've taken up in the Transport SPC. No, I'm not finished. It's about the school bus system in the
Councillor
south.
Dermot Lacey.
We must have a school bus system.
Can we mute it? Councillor Dermot Lacey.
This debate has all the hallmarks of make me pure but not yet. Everybody knows we need to do something with traffic in the city, but nobody wants to take the decisions required. Communications is the key, and I really want to commend the Irish Times to, in contrast to RTE, actually engage in a reasonable, informed debate, whereas RTE gave us two protagonists, neither of them involved in local government, of course, engaged on this issue. So we need more clear communications. But we need to look at our own structures. As a member of this City Council, I have never seen a plan, the Dublin City Traffic Plan. There needs to be a full presentation to the full council on this. Not for me to oppose it, for me to understand this, and I think that's something that maybe the traffic department would pick up, because we need to do it. Finally, we need to engage with those communities who are affected negatively in a very detailed way to resolve these matters. These problems can be resolved if we try, but we need to try.
Margaret, Councillor Michael Pigeon.
Thanks very much. Like a lot of talk about public transport when it comes to this plan, asking about when the metro is going to be built, which is a fair question. We need to push on with that. But even if you set aside that our quays are crap and unloved and not a nice place to be and congested, even if you set aside space for pedestrians or cyclists or people who need to drive into the city, at the core of this is just making the bus work. Because if you listen to the CEO of Dublin Bus moves 51%, the majority of commuters into Dublin every day. It's 400,000 passengers a day. And he said that of the 121 routes, the vast majority go through the city centre. And he said, I quote, "One of the biggest problems we have with moving passengers is the congestion in the city centre. So on a daily basis, it's very difficult for us to run a really reliable and punctual service with the level of congestion in the city." This is what we need to do. We need to prioritise a bus, because a bus moves a hell of a lot more people than one or two cars ever can, while using very little road space. It's a city that's growing, the core city centre is built. Prioritise the bus.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm pretty sure everyone was in the room just 2 hours ago when we unanimously supported the Climate Action Plan, much like we approved the City Development Plan. So it's pretty clear that no one actually read the Climate Action Plan, because if you had, you would see that there are very key, clear objectives around transport and active travel, and it prioritises cycling, walking, and big public pedestrianisation projects with cleaner streets and cleaner air, because that is what climate action is. Yet here we are criticising the process because we don't like the outcome, an outcome that was 82% of the respondents supporting this. And you're saying that people weren't told about it. I wonder, what is your role as an elected representative? I personally dropped about 7,000 leaflets on this. I held a public meeting. You have a responsibility to let people know about what is going on in their city. It is too late to criticise the process now. The time was then. Now we need to talk about how it will be monitored, how it will be reported on. That's very, very important. But this is not banning private cars.
Councillor
It's
Kevin Donoghue.
reorienting traffic
Never
and
to elect
freeing
for
up
court
space.
and judicial review.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. I think this plan is very exciting. It's nice to see a plan with a bit of teeth in it and that will actually make some substantive changes. And I do think when it eventually, or if it eventually comes to pass, it'll be very quickly, we'll wonder how we ever operate it the way we currently do. The point I want to make is in relation to a consultation. Consultation, I think, has derailed the substance of a number of debates in this council over the last number of years. And maybe at this stage it's an issue for the incoming council, but I think a framework or some kind of guidance document around how consultations are to be carried out could be agreed between the councillors on the next council, so that when an issue like this comes up for debate, we can't, like, some of the issues around consultation are real, some of them are not. And I think that the issue of consultation is very frequently used as an excuse to bring up complaints that aren't actually related to consultation at all. And if we have an agreed framework in place that we can point to at the end of or the start of any presentation, we can avoid debates like this, which focus on the issues around consultation, be they real or imagined, over the actual substance of the issue. Thanks.
Councillor Ray McAdam.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll be very quick. Just to put it on the record, like Councillor Byrne, I distributed more than 5,500 newsletters across the North Inner City to gauge the views of my constituents. I think, as is the case in any debate, language is important, and I say that to our friends in the Fourth Estate, as I say to all public representatives, be that councillors, senators, TDs, and ministers. The reality is that we do need to reduce our dependency on the private car, but equally we cannot simply wish away problems as well. And I think there are elements of the transport plan that we are simply wishing away. And I am concerned that, particularly in parts of the inner city that I represent in Stony Batter and parts of Dublin 7, that we are going to see increased levels of traffic and therefore issues with our air quality. And finally, on the issue of consultation, I've said this at the CPG in the past, Lord Mayor, there has to be some level of management of how we're going to consult by this council.
Councillor Vincent Jackson.
Consistency.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, very interesting discussion over the last while, and I live in part of the city that you live in, Lord Mayor, that we're crucified with traffic on a daily basis. I never hear any opportunities to reduce the through traffic. About 16 to 20,000 cars and trucks and vans cut through Ballyfermot every day. One of our colleagues earlier on said about a love affair with the car. The simple fact, when I was a kid, on Kylemore Road, Cherry Orchard Industrial Estate, there were thousands of people employed there. There's about 150 people. They're all just redundant units that a couple of retail units in them. So we've moved all the jobs. I look at all my neighbours every morning. They all go out about 6, half 6 in the morning, and they all travel all out to Kildare and all that part of the world. There is no public transport to bring people out there. So unless you have a car, you just have to be consigned to unemployment or whatever the case may be. Obviously, we want to reduce the through traffic in the city. But in doing so, we have to try and do it in such a way that we don't destroy the retail heart of the city. And one of the big traders in Capel Street, just recently I was talking to someone who works there, and they said business is down 70%. So I'm just saying there is going to be an awful lot of
Paddy McCartan.
Collateral damage. Thanks, Lord.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I'm a member of the Transport Committee, and we've debated this issue over the last number of months. And I was disappointed then when certain councillors were brought on board by RTE to make comments when they hadn't been a member of the committee. I know they're entitled to do that. But the point being, we're not banning cars from the city centre, but you can't argue with statistics. If over 60% of car drivers' journeys are used to go through the city to another destination, that means our streets are being used as a rat run. In relation to some of the inner city areas there in Pierce Street, people are absolutely fed up with the traffic, the environmental considerations, and the damage that's being done to their health. I'm regarded, Lord Mayor, as being a green Fine Gael. I'm greener than most of them. And I take it very strongly that I in support of this plan. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Lord Mayor. I am pro this proposal and I want to see it as a success. However, it will only be a success if we have open and honest communications, and that means showing people models of where alternative traffic is going to go, what the impact is going to be for the economy of the city, and how the Gardaí are going to police the greater public realm areas so that we don't have another boardwalk scenario. So I think communications are absolutely key. We see the benefits. We need to help people see through any fears and see what the long-term gain is for the city. Thank you.
Gurmagut. Before we close the debate, Mannix, are you there? During the course of the debate, you said that Dublin City Council officials misled the court. I'd just like to give you this opportunity to withdraw those very serious allegations.
I won't be withdrawing those allegations. That is a fact, and it's on record. It's on the court record also.
Okay. Okay, Court. That concludes the topical issue debate. Okay. Micheál Mac Donncha, apologies. Micheál Mac Donncha.
Yeah, thank you, Gurmagat. Just to generally welcome the report. Despite the flawed process, I think the outcome is generally welcome. Anything we can do as a city council to improve public transport in particular, make it more available, make it more accessible, is absolutely should be done. Part of the plan is focused on the North Quays. We don't use the potential of the North Quays. They have great potential, as obviously they're south facing, but the potential to use them for primarily pedestrian, cyclist, public transport, and open space would be great. I have to conclude by this. I'm sick and tired of a certain councillor on this council describing Dublin as a disaster. It's headline grabbing, and of course it works with certain media outlets, but it really lets this city council down and lets the people of Dublin down, shouting disaster and
Micheál.
A lot of the people who are cutting the city.
Now, Gurmagut, I'm not entertaining anything else. So, Natalie.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Item number 19.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, on a point of information.
Point of information.
I asked a question of the city manager. I asked him would he stand over the survey.
We don't take questions during topical issues, Councillor Farrell, as per standing orders.
Lord Mayor, I accepted no questions, but does the manager not respond?
It's a topical issue and it's a debate for council.
You need the NTA to
as per standing orders.
Well, Lord Mayor, can I ask...
Natalie, Gurmagut, no, I'm not entertaining. Have you a point of information?
I'm asking that this council would refer that aspect of the standing orders to the protocol committee.
Protocol committee, absolutely no issues, but under standing orders, this is how we work.
I actually don't agree
Natalie,
with you on that interpretation,
Gurmagut.
Thank you, Lord Mayor.
On a point of information.
Lord Mayor, on a point of information, can the manager tell us when this issue is actually going to be decided on? But sorry, please, it's helpful. Can the manager tell us when we're going to decide on this issue? I think that's really helpful because it hasn't been decided on.
It'll be in, Deirdre, I can tell you that. It'll be in April, at the April Council meeting. It's coming to the April Council meeting, okay? Natalie, please continue with the agenda.
Sorry, on another point of information, Lord Mayor.
Sorry,
another point of information.
Bear with me now.
Lord Mayor, another point of information.
Now, item number 19.
Please, can I have some units in the
sorry,
chamber?
Lord Mayor. Sorry, Lord Mayor. I don't speak that often. And
yeah, well, if you want to speak, you put your hand up, Councillor Farrell. We can't just speak out. I'm not entertaining that tonight. We've had way too much of it.
Item number 19, report number 39 of the Area Committee, breviates of the
Sorry,
Area
Lord
Committee
Mayor.
meetings
Lord Mayor.
held in
Sorry, Lord
the
Mayor.
month of
There was a
January
very serious
Is it a point of information?
On a point of information, there was a very serious accusation there made that there was one of our staff members, it's on a court record, misled the court.